Hello and welcome to my workshop. So today we're going to take my old comp truck, and this is based on the SCX-102 chassis. There's been a lot of modifications to it, and we'll get into the details later. The body is kind of like a 4Runner. This was made several years ago, and it's based off the RC four-wheel drive body and a lot of different other things I've kind of cobbled together to make it have the look of a 4Runner without putting too much effort into it. Like, I said, it's a comp truck, so it does get beat up pretty good. What we're going to end up doing is taking the BoomRacing anti-torque twist transfer case and marrying that up with a SSD rear axle and essentially give the same anti-torque twist that's on the new BoomRacing BRX01 to this comp truck. So we'll see how this works. I'll be working out the details as we go through, but I think this is going to make a good improvement to this truck. So let's get started. Okay, so first thing I've done here is build out the BoomRacing transfer case. And it's actually a really nice piece, and so the way this will work is that you'll have the input shaft coming in, and you'll have these two shafts obviously spinning the same direction because they're connected, and this other shaft spins backwards, and that's what gives you the ability to have the anti-twist. So the SSD axle, I'm using that in the rear because it is symmetrical inside, and that means you can turn the gear upside down, which will then allow you to run the drive shaft in the opposite direction of what it normally would spin and still, go forward. The only issue with that is you have to turn the case upside down, which does lower the drive shaft down a little bit. But with my setup, it's not going to be that big of a deal. I don't think it's going to be a problem. Technically it will be a little bit lower, but I'm not really think it's going to drag too much. I think the benefit of the anti-twist is going to be much greater than that little bit that could possibly be dragging. So I also want to take some time to go over the somewhat unique suspension I have in the rear of this truck. The front is pretty well stock SCX-102. The back is shortened, but that's not the unique part. The unique part is that I have leaf springs, cantilever, and a 4-link suspension. So normally you cannot run a 4-link suspension with a leaf sprung suspension because most traditional leaf sprung suspensions are fixed on one end and then pivot on the other end. And what that actually does, if you're not familiar, is that it will, as the leaf is cycled through, it actually will flatten out, which will cause the wheelbase to extend, and it does that on an arc. So being that you're fixed with a 4-link, you would bind up, and then that axle is trying to move backwards, you would be all bound up. So what I've done is, to get the 4-link to work, I've actually pivoted it on both sides, and that allows me to keep a 4-link in the rear, which is a very good your double triangulation, which keeps your axle in a very fixed spot and makes it the same wheelbase as it travels through, which makes it more predictable when you're crawling. But I still get the benefit of the leaf spring, not only from the functionality, because I think they do really work really well in the rear, but you also get the scale points. And then to add a little bit to that to help, I'm putting a cantilever system. It's somewhat of a unique setup, but it works flawlessly. And it's just kind of stumbled across this, but it's definitely something that works really well. So I'm going to now continue on and see if I can get the transfer case, the rear axle, all set up and ready to go back in. The rear axle has been put together, and what I end up swapping over the gears and a lot of the components, but mostly use the new SSD axle. As mentioned, I'm putting the pinion at the bottom, and which is going to lower it, and it's going to lower it down, obviously, even and cause some ground clearance issues. But I think I'm still going to be okay. I will have to come back and modify the upper link. I want to tilt this down just a little bit. I've also taken the transfer case. Now I built it per the directions, but then ended up turning the parts around so that it would fit better into the design I already have. So what I'm going to have to do is end up swapping out the skid plate for the other style skid plate. This little raised portion here kind of pushes this up a little too high. The other one doesn't have that, and I'll be able to make a plate to go down in there and then mount this up, and it should be okay. So all in all, very happy with how this is turning out. Really looking forward to getting this all set up and getting it tested out on the rocks. So let's get back to that. So I was able to get the BoomRacing transfer case successfully, put into this truck. Now remember I was taking out kind of a customized Axial transfer case that was off of the kit version of the SCX-102. I couldn't find a replacement skid plate in my parts bin like I wanted, so I just took the one I had in, ground off that little stepped up area where the old SCX-102 footprint would go, and made it flush all the way across. Then I took a metallized two-part epoxy and embedded that all into the bottom of the skid plate, and pressed a thin piece of stainless steel right into the epoxy and let that dry. What that does, it gives it a nice solid base running across, but then the thin metal epoxy gives it a very good place for the transfer case to be mounted, so that you're not putting in any distortion into the transfer case. I did have to make a new flexible shaft. It was just a little bit further back than what I had in before. I've already tested this out, and it works, just as I suspected. It works flawlessly. I tested it on the concrete in the basement. It just was perfectly level and stable. There was no twist, which is going to be great. So I have several other things I want to check on the truck now that I'm kind of in the mode of doing a winter rebuild. In general, when I looked it over, it's not too bad, but I do want to check, link ends, make sure they're, get the worn link ends repaired and replaced. Check things like the winch and electronics. Look for signs of rust, bearings failure, and anything that could possibly go wrong that I can kind of see now. So I'll go over the whole truck and get this thing the best shape I can for the upcoming season. Looking forward to getting out and doing some testing on this new transfer case. I think it's going to work really well. But until then, we'll see you on the rocks.